The applause broke over my head like a wave I wasn't invited to stand in. I could smell the flowers, hear the families cheering their graduates, feel the weight of all those camera flashes, but none of it was meant for me. I sat alone, nearly pressed against the back wall, so far away I could barely see my daughter's cap. They hadn't even saved me a seat. My name is Lydia, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever felt erased inside your own blood? I saw them, her father, my ex-husband, dressed in a crisp grey suit, and the woman he left me for, all pearls and easy smiles, beaming proudly in the front row, together, like they'd raised her, like they'd carried her through nights of colic and fevers and those tear-soaked mornings when she didn't want to go to school. They sat close enough to catch every word, every moment. And me? I was a ghost in the back. When she walked across the stage, beautiful and strong in her green robe, I felt my heart want to break with pride. Until I saw her pause, turning to the side, whispering to a friend who giggled behind a hand. "She's used to nobody noticing her," my daughter said, with a casual, cold grin. I swear the world slowed in that instant. My ears rang. My breath hitched. It was as if she had twisted a knife I didn't even know was still buried in my chest. I felt people shifting in their seats around me, leaning forward, taking pictures, clapping. No one looked at me. No one wondered if I was okay. That was the part that burned the deepest. No one noticed when I stood. No one cared when I stepped carefully between knees and purses, apologizing under my breath, head down. I walked out of that hall before the final applause, before the caps went flying, before anyone could see the tears breaking from my eyes like glass. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached. My throat burned with a scream I refused to let out. The night felt huge, endless, swallowing the last bits of my worth. She had called me invisible. She had made me believe it. But in the silence of my apartment, sitting under the dull kitchen light, something inside me snapped. Maybe they were all right, I thought. Maybe I was invisible. But if I was, then they would never see me coming. I opened my laptop with shaking hands, every piece of me trembling but alive. I scrolled through photos I'd been collecting for years, documents, receipts, bank statements, messages, secrets. They thought they could rewrite my place in her life. They thought I'd sit politely in the shadows, grateful for scraps. No, I'd given my daughter everything. I'd sacrificed until my bones felt hollow. If she wanted to see me as no one, then I would show her just how powerful no one could be. I clicked record, and the truth, every raw, jagged, unflinching piece of it, poured out of me, because I wasn't going to beg for a seat in their front row. I was going to take the whole stage. When morning came, and she opened that video, she would learn that the woman she thought nobody noticed had been seeing everything. Every single lie, every single betrayal. And this time, she would never forget me. I would make sure of that. I barely slept that night, every nerve in my body lit up with an electricity I couldn't put out. At dawn, I showered, washed away the mascara trails on my face, and stepped into a fresh black blouse like armor. The world would think I was defeated, but they had no idea I was only getting started. Have you ever been so overlooked that you became dangerous? I poured stale coffee into a chipped mug, my mind replaying every moment of that graduation. The laughter, the careless smile, the friend's polite giggle. Like I was a tragic footnote. Like I was the embarrassment no one wanted to claim. But if they thought my shame was their shield, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I sat down with my laptop and opened the video file. My voice had shaken in the recording, but the truth in it was solid as iron. I played it back, every word slicing clean and deep. Every secret I'd stored over the years lined up like loaded bullets. The second file was even worse for them. Screenshots, emails, transactions they thought I would never question, payments from my ex to hush attorneys, custody lies, even payments to the headmaster of the school to secure my daughter's placement. I had it all. They thought they could bury me behind that final row chair. I was about to bury them under the truth. I loaded the files onto a drive, a bright red flash drive my daughter had once used for a cheer video, the irony biting into me. I would send it to her, all of it. Let her see the price of trying to vanish her own mother from her story. The sun was breaking through the window, turning everything a dull gold. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the slow, powerful awakening that I was finally going to do something about this. I called the courier. Calm, professional. Same-day delivery, I said, voice steady. It has to get there before noon. He didn't ask questions. Before I sealed the package, I held the flash drive between my fingers, letting its tiny weight remind me how fragile the truth can feel and how heavy it can hit. This was my line in the sand. I walked out to the street as the courier van pulled up, clutching the envelope like a final confession. I made the handoff, watched the package disappear into the back of the van, and felt something deep in my chest break open. The next part of the plan was harder. I dialed her father's office, a direct line I hadn't called in years. He answered, voice smug and easy, just like always. Lydia. My name in his mouth tasted like poison. You'll want to check your daughter's inbox, I told him, as calm as a blade. He laughed, the kind of laugh that once made me shrink. What's your problem now? I didn't flinch. You'll see, I said, and hung up. I imagined him sitting there, confusion turning to fear as he pieced it together. Imagine my daughter's phone buzzing with that video. Her perfect world, built on my silence, about to fall like cheap glass. I was done being the seatless ghost in her life. If it took binding down every illusion she'd ever held of me, then let it bane. I had given her love. I had given her patience. Now I would give her the truth. The city roared outside my window, horns and brakes and strangers going about their morning. But for me, the world had gone deadly quiet, as if holding its breath. I poured another coffee and stood tall. They thought they'd seen me humiliated at that graduation. But tomorrow, when that video finished playing, they would see the woman who built her own power from their shadows. And for the first time in years, I let a small smile break across my face, because I was done sitting at the back of the hall. By mid-morning, the tremors started. My phone buzzed with numbers I hadn't saved in years, my daughter's new number, her father's office, even the school's administrative line. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to be interrupted while they finally swallowed the truth I'd left for them. Have you ever watched the walls someone built to lock you out collapse? Brick by lying brick? I sat by my kitchen table, sunlight creeping across the tile floor like a slow, steady witness. I replayed every word I had recorded, remembering how my voice had shaken but stayed true. I told her everything, how her father forged documents during the divorce, how he manipulated the courts, how her stepmother had smiled sweetly while cutting my name out of every holiday invitation. And I told her what she was worth to me, even after all that. That I loved her, that I would never let her keep living inside someone else's illusions about her mother, because they had rewritten me in her story, a faint smudge in the back row, and I refused to stay there. My phone pulsed again, a new message flashing across the screen. MOM. What is this? Why would you do this? Please answer me. I closed my eyes. Her voice lived in that text, that sharp, high-pitched disbelief. And then another one. How could you try to ruin everything for me? Dad is furious. They are saying you lied. They would say that. Of course they would. That was their only defense. But the files were real. The screenshots were real. The receipts didn't lie. I typed back, my fingers steady. Ask your father about the $75,000. Ask him who signed those school transfer forms. Ask him why he thought you'd never know. No more playing the villain for them while they played the saints. I had lived through the coldest nights wondering if my daughter would ever come back to me, wondering if my name even crossed her mind, if she ever thought of how hard I had fought to keep our tiny apartment warm, to keep the lights on, to keep her birthday cake sweet when I had barely $20 to my name. And all for what? So she could stand on a stage and smirk that no one noticed me. My chest burned with a rage so sharp it almost felt clean. I stood up, pacing, the old floor creaking under my bare feet. The phone buzzed again, more desperate this time. Mom, please, pick up. I don't understand any of this. Please don't do this to me. For a second, my heart cracked open. The mother in me screamed to run to her, to soothe her, to tell her everything would be all right. But it wouldn't be all right. It was never all right. And I wouldn't lie to her again. She had to know who stood behind the curtains holding her world up. She had to know what it cost me to smile through every graduation fundraiser, every letter from the school praising her perfect grades, every teacher conference where they told me she was thriving while I was starving inside. I let my hands drop to my sides. I wouldn't pick up. Not today. Today was for me. Today was for the woman who refused to shrink, who refused to let them edit her out of her own child's life. If she hated me for telling the truth, so be it. Sometimes love was a wound you had to cut open before it could heal. And tomorrow, maybe, when the ashes settled, she would look back and understand that no mother ever chooses to disappear. Sometimes she is erased, until she fights to be remembered. I heard nothing the rest of that day, no calls, no texts, just a heavy, echoing quiet, as if my confession had punched a hole through their perfect world and left them stunned. It felt like standing in the stillness after a bomb goes off, waiting to see what's left standing. Have you ever set fire to everything you love because you know it's the only way to save it? I didn't eat, didn't sleep. I just sat in the living room, my phone on the coffee table, willing it to buzz again, to break the silence. Because as painful as their anger was, it was still something. It meant I hadn't been completely erased. When the screen finally lit up, I nearly jumped. It was her. Mom, I'm coming over. Don't turn me away. My hands went numb. I read the text again and again, trying to hear what she might sound like. Was she angry? Was she afraid? Did she hate me? I wanted to tell her no. Stay away. Don't come here with your half-broken pity and your carefully curated insults. But another part of me, the mother part, still wanted to see her face, even if it was twisted with rage. I typed back. Doors unlocked. 10 minutes later, I heard a car door slam. Quick footsteps on the cracked walkway. Then the front door eased open, just a fraction, like she wasn't sure I'd really let her in. She stepped inside. My daughter. Her hair was still curled from graduation, but her eyes were rimmed in red, swollen from crying. That should have satisfied me, but all it did was slice me open in places I hadn't known was still raw. She held up the flash drive, her hand shaking. Why? She demanded, voice breaking. Why would you do this to me? Why would you ruin everything? I took a breath that felt like knives. I didn't ruin you, I told her, quiet. I told you the truth. She shook her head so hard her tassel earrings swayed. You destroyed me. Dad says you made all this up because you're bitter and alone. I almost laughed. Bitter and alone? I was more alone than bitter. And as for making things up, I had the receipts. I reached for the folder on the table, the one I hadn't shown the camera. Real papers, real signatures. I slid them across to her. Read, I whispered. She looked down, tears dripping onto the page. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the paper steady. Why would he lie to me? She asked in a voice so small it might have belonged to the 5-year-old I used to tuck in at night. Because he was protecting himself, I answered. Because I was the only one who could challenge him. Her shoulders crumpled. I had a moment, just a second, where I wanted to hold her. I reached out, then stopped myself. Because some truths you have to stand alone to face. She sank into the chair across from me, sobbing into her hands. I hate you, she gasped. I hate you for telling me. That broke me in ways the graduation never could. But I didn't take it back. Sometimes being a mother means they will hate you before they understand you. And as she sat there, her entire image of the world crashing down around her, I knew she would remember this moment for the rest of her life, the day her mother stopped begging to be noticed and stood up to be seen. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky, distant but steady, like a warning that more storms were coming. I folded my hands in my lap, steady as a stone. If I had to stand alone in the rain to keep my child from drowning in their lies, then let the rain come. The rain started that night, steady and cold, drumming against the window as if it too had a story to confess. My daughter didn't leave. She sat curled up on the old armchair across from me, clutching those papers like they were weapons and shields at the same time. I watched her chest rise and fall with sobs until the silence between us grew unbearable. Have you ever felt your child look at you like a stranger because you finally showed them your truest face? I tried to speak, but my voice refused. Years of swallowing pain had left it too brittle to carry gentle words. So I waited. Let her start. Her tears slowed, but her eyes burned with something new. Confusion, maybe even a tiny thread of hope. "Mom," she said, voice shaking, "why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did you let them do this?" The question sliced straight through me. "Because you were happy," I whispered, hands trembling. "Because I thought you needed him. I thought you needed a normal family more than you needed me." She stared at me like I'd sprouted horns. "That's not fair," she shot back. "You don't get to decide what I needed." She was right. God, she was so heartbreakingly right. "No," I admitted, voice raw, "I don't. But it was the only way I could survive letting you go." She pulled her knees tighter to her chest, and for a moment she looked 5 again, wrapped in a blanket on a thunderstorm night, terrified of monsters under her bed. Only this time the monster wasn't under the bed. It was sitting in the front row of her graduation, clapping like he'd built her from scratch. She took a shaky breath. "He lied to me, Mom." "Yes. He bought the school place." I nodded. "I wanted you to earn it. But he couldn't stand the thought of you failing. He bought your acceptance." Her hands shook so hard I thought she might tear the folder in half. "What about the money?" she asked, voice a whisper of horror. 75,000, I told her, "hidden in payments to that principal. I have proof of every transfer." She slammed the papers down like they were on fire. "I hate all of you," she cried, voice echoing off the walls. The words felt like a whip, but I let them stand. If she needed to hate me, let her. Hatred was still a connection. "At least now," I said gently, "you know who you really are, and who they really are." She stood up, pacing like a caged animal, hands fisting in her hair. "What do I do now?" she demanded. My heart broke for the 1,000th time. "You decide," I told her. "You decide what kind of woman you want to be. Not him. Not me. You." Lightning flared outside, casting a brief glow across her tear-streaked face. In that flash, she looked terrifyingly grown and heartbreakingly lost. She turned away from me, shoulders shaking, then whispered so softly I almost missed it. "Why does it hurt so much?" I closed my eyes, wishing I could hold every ounce of her pain in my own hands. "Because the truth always does," I said. I watched her sink back into the armchair, exhausted, defeated, but awake, truly awake. Maybe this was what mothers were made for, not to keep their children from every pain, but to stand with them while the pain burned away all the lies. The rain pounded harder, a low, steady drumbeat that felt almost like applause. My daughter wiped her face and looked at me, and for the first time in what felt like years, there was no disgust in her eyes, only fear, and the smallest, rawest spark of understanding. If this was the price of being seen, then I would pay it 1,000 times over, because a mother never truly leaves. She simply waits to be found. The rain slowed by morning, leaving the world scrubbed raw and cold. I moved around the kitchen in silence, brewing cheap coffee that smelled like old comfort. My daughter hadn't slept. I heard her shift on the couch all night, heard her ragged breathing, heard her fighting the new truth clawing through her dreams. Have you ever prayed for forgiveness you know might never come? I set a steaming mug on the table in front of her. She looked up, eyes swollen from tears, and for a moment we were just mother and daughter again. No secrets, no files, no lies, just two people broken open. Thanks, she whispered, voice hoarse. I nodded, afraid any word from him might shatter the fragile truce. She wrapped both hands around the mug and stared down into it like she might see the future in the swell of cheap cream. Mom, she started, then faltered. I held my breath. Why did you stay quiet? All these years? I swallowed hard. The question felt so simple on her tongue, but it was a storm in my chest. Because, I began slowly, if I spoke, you might have lost everything. Your school, your friends, your chance to be happy. And I was willing to be the villain if it meant you had a chance to shine. She shook her head. You don't get it. That's not shining. That's living in a lie. I nodded, tears staining the back of my eyes. I know, but I thought maybe lies could be kinder than the truth. Her shoulders sagged. They never are, she whispered. A silence passed between us, so heavy I thought it might crush me. Then she asked the question that truly scared me. What do I do now? I walked around the table and knelt in front of her. I forced her to look at me, to see every line grief had carved into my face. You choose, I told her, steady as I could. You choose the woman you want to be. You can forgive him, you can cut him out, you can run, you can stay, but it will be your choice. Not mine, not his, yours. She stayed at me, blinking back more tears. What if I don't know how? I reached up and touched her cheek, soft as I used to when she was a baby. Then I'll help you learn, I promised. A sob slipped out of her, and then she folded against me, burying her face in my shoulder. Her arms were thin, shaking, clinging like a child again. I'm so sorry, she wept, over and over. I held her tight, burying my face in her hair, breathing her in like air after drowning. No, I whispered, my own voice breaking. I'm sorry. Because it was my silence that fed the monster. It was my fear that let him win for so long. She pulled back, eyes rimmed with fire now instead of tears. Mom, I want to confront him, she said, voice shaking but fierce. I felt my spine go cold. Are you sure? Yes. I nodded. Then we'll do it together. She swallowed hard, and I saw something steel-strong settle behind her gaze. I had given her the truth. Now she would wield it. Outside, the sun cracked through the clouds at last, turning the world to gold. She grabbed my hand, tight, like a lifeline. We were no longer strangers. We were survivors, and together we would march right into the lion's den. Because sometimes love is not soft, it is a sword. The sun was blinding as we stepped out that afternoon, slicing through the last scraps of storm clouds. The world looked washed clean, but my heart thudded like a war drum. My daughter gripped my hand so tightly I could feel every tremor of her fear and her courage tangled together. Have you ever felt stronger and more terrified at the same time? We pulled up to the house I used to call mine, the one her father had won in the divorce, with its perfect paint and flower beds trimmed by someone else's hands. It looked the same, but I had changed, and she had changed, and nothing would ever look the same to me again. She took a deep breath as I killed the engine. You don't have to do this, I told her softly. She shook her head, jaw set. Yes, I do. My girl. My fierce, aching, wounded girl. We walked up the path side by side. The door opened before we even knocked, as if he'd been watching for us. My ex-husband stood there, the portrait of a man in control, neat hair, sharp button-down, cold smile. The woman at his shoulder, the stepmother, hovered like a shadow trying to stay relevant. Lydia, he said, with that syrupy condescension he'd perfected years ago. What is this about? My daughter stepped forward before I could speak. It's about me, she snapped. He looked startled. Sweetheart, we don't need to do this here. Her hand shook, but her voice was steel. I know about the money. I know about the bribes. I know everything. His smile cracked. You don't understand. She cut him off. No, Dad. You don't understand. You don't get to make me your trophy anymore. He turned on me then, voice dropping to a hiss. This is your doing, Lydia. You twisted her against me. I stood tall, spine straight. No, I said, calmly. I just told her the truth. The stepmother tried to jump in, voice shrill. You are destroying this family. My daughter whirled on her with a rage I'd never seen before. You destroyed it. You made me believe my mother didn't matter. The woman fell silent, lips pinched. For a moment, no one moved. The air felt heavy with the weight of every lie, every betrayal. Then my daughter took out the folder, all the papers, the screenshots, the payments. She laid them on the entryway table, one by one, like she was laying down weapons in a final duel. This is mine, she told her father, voice unshakable. My life, my choices. He tried to grab the papers, but she blocked him. No, she warned. No more. Pride bloomed so sharp in my chest it almost hurt. He stepped back, defeated, for the first time in his carefully constructed life. My daughter looked at me, eyes shining with the fiercest, rawest love I had ever seen. Mom, she said, voice steady, I want to go. I nodded. We walked away without another word, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their illusions. Back in the car, she gripped my hand again, breathing hard. I don't know where to go from here, she admitted, voice breaking. I squeezed her fingers. We'll figure it out together. And for the first time, that felt true. She had walked through fire, and I had walked through it beside her. We were bruised, burned, but standing. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to let them break you, and watching them fall apart under the weight of their own sins. We left that house without looking back. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing my shoulder sink or my eyes turn away. My daughter's hand was still wrapped in mine, her grip shaky but real. The sun had fallen behind the trees by then, painting everything in a deep copper light that felt like the end of something, or maybe the start. Have you ever realized the moment you reclaimed your own story? We drove through streets that felt too familiar, every corner etched with old ghosts. She was quiet beside me, watching the world slip by through the window, breathing in something new and terrifying, freedom. I pulled into the parking lot of a small diner on the edge of town. Cheap neon letters buzzed overhead. I used to bring her here when she was a kid, when we needed to pretend we were okay. Come on, I said gently, and she nodded, climbing out with me. Inside, the air smelled like old coffee and hope. We found a booth by the window, and the waitress, a tired-looking woman with a kind smile, came over without asking our names. I ordered 2 mugs of coffee and a slice of pie, like I had 1,000 times before. My daughter watched me, her eyes finally soft, the fight gone. Mom, she began, voice rough. I don't know who to trust anymore. I reached across the table, took her hand in both of mine. Then start with me, I said, steady. Let's build something new. From scratch. No lies. She nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek, and for the first time I didn't reach to wipe it away. She needed to feel this. We sat there a long time in silence, letting the neon sign blink over us, letting the pie grow cold, letting the world rush past the glass. The years of resentment, of small cruelties, of half-truths, they were all there, coiled between us, but they no longer had power. We would heal, piece by jagged piece. And that video, the one she'd watched, the one that shattered her illusions, it was still on her phone, still in her bag, still waiting, if she ever doubted, to remind her that her mother had fought for her. Her father might rebuild his lies someday, might spin new stories, but he would never again be able to erase me from the front row of her life. No one would. She lifted her head, eyes clearer than I'd seen since she was a child, and asked me, "What do we do next?" I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. "Anything we want," I told her, "because no one gets to decide who we are except us." Outside, cars rolled on, strangers living their stories, the night unfolding in small, forgiving pieces. I would never sit at the back of any hole again. I would never swallow my voice for their comfort. And she would never again doubt whose blood ran in her veins, whose spine shaped her courage, whose heart showed her how to survive. The world would see us, mother and daughter, battered but unbroken, because the woman they thought nobody noticed was the one who had built their entire illusion, and she had the power to tear it down whenever she chose. And now I would stand beside my daughter, not behind her, and let the world remember my name.